You guys, this video is going to be absolutely bonkers. It's why I'm currently renting and why you should be renting too. Now, before I continue, let me tell you this. I'm a small-time investor. I actually have a residence that I turned into a rental house and instead of cashing in on my home's equity. So I decided to I decided to rent out my primary residence at the peak of the rental market instead of selling my primary residence and cashing in. And let me tell you guys this, I understand that renting is a complete waste of money, but I want to tell you why I will continue to rent if necessary for another 18 months. But before I continue, if you can, like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and definitely before you guys tune off, comment below, let me know if you agree with my strategy or not. But one thing is for sure, I am putting my money where my mouth is, and I want you to go along this journey with me. First thing I want to do is let me explain to you my mindset, and then what we'll do is we'll look at some factors about my mindset, we'll look at some factors about a potential recession or crash coming, but the first thing I need you guys to know is my mindset is basically that we're going to have a recession. So I'm going to outline some factors on why I think we're going to have a recession, but the number one thing I want to do is explain to you where I'm at mentally. And then at the end of this video, we'll go over my opinion. Now, the number one thing right now, the reason why I'm renting, the reason I don't think you should buy is inventory, okay? Inventory right now is absolutely horrible. It is an absolute nightmare if you are a first-time home buyer in this market. Now, let me explain. I'm definitely willing to overpay for something that I love. I am not willing to overpay for something that I hate or that I just like. And the reason is, if we buy right now at the peak, and I'll explain in a minute here the factors on why I think a recession or a crash is going to happen. But if I buy right now at the peak, I believe I'm going to have to hold on to my house for 7 to 10 years before I rebound from a potential equity loss. And quite frankly, I don't want to be stuck in a house for 7 or 10 years unless I absolutely love it. And what's happening right now, y'all, with the inventory is the moment I see something, and it's actually very funny, 30 minutes before I made this video, my wife sent me a house that I love. So I may actually finish this video and go make an offer on it. But let's act like I didn't just say that. If I'm gonna hold on to something for 7 to 10 years, I need to love that house. But what's happening right now, and what will probably happen for the house I'm about to look at, is multiple offer situation. And when you continuously go into multiple offer situations, it becomes frustrating when you lose. There's a lot of energy put in there. There's a lot of feelings that are involved in going after a huge transaction like this. So it is definitely hurting my heart, and I kind of want to give up. But as you've seen in some of my other videos, there's a slight window when it comes to affordability because interest rates, according to Freddie Mac, the 30-year fixed rates have actually gone down, making it a little bit more affordable, at least for the next few weeks, okay? So the number one thing I want you to understand why I'm renting right now, quite frankly, is the lack of inventory and the lack of something that I love, not to mention the outrageous prices for houses, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is why I think there's going to be a housing market crash, an economic crash, or a recession. So I'm going to start laying out some data right now, some data points right now that I have learned and that I have shared with you guys already that have been following along with me. Now, the first thing I want to go over, why I think there's going to be a recession, why I think there's going to be a crash is there has been year over year of double-digit equity growth. In certain cities, the cost of owning a home has gone up from 2021 to 2022 over 60%. Now think about that. Okay, so we have shot up year after year in equity with no end in sight. All of the history of the housing market, when things spike up like that, it ends up being a cool down. Now, I think at the very, very least, we're gonna have a cool down if we don't have a crash. But again, you guys, as you know from watching this, I believe a crash is gonna happen the fourth quarter or very end of this year. That is what I've structured myself to be in. That is how I set up my life, okay? So we have to take into consideration that equity has gone up way too quickly, way too fast, way too much. That's A. Now here's B. The impending rate hike has not even started on the federal level. The feds are going to be meeting in 2 days from the date that I'm recording this video, and they will start increasing the interest rates. That is what they have said. Now, what that's going to obviously do is, as the interest rates continue to go up, it is going to diminish the affordability. So when affordability is diminished, demand will be diminished as well. And one of the reasons we're in this situation is because of supply and demand. So as demand goes down and supply goes up, we're going to be more likely to be headed into a cool off and crash. But as I've said in other videos, the feds, although they are taking a more dovish stance because of the Ukraine war, the interest rates are still going to go up, and they're probably going to go up a minimum of 6 times this year on a Federal Reserve level. So affordability will continue to be diminished. Now here's C. New home builders, okay? Now new home builders are building new homes at record levels, as you've seen in some of my videos. According to the 2021 data, 1.5 million permits, and I understand all houses will be completed. Nevertheless, 1.5 million permits to build new homes have been pulled, which essentially means as the time goes on this year, new home builders are going to continue to dump supplies, and what that's going to do is increase the supplies of these homes. So not only are we going to have a decrease in the demand from the interest rates going up, we're also going to have an increase in supplies. The fact is, a record number of homes are being built right now. So again, I say, the longer that we wait this year, the more inventory that will come on the market. Now here's D. Decreased investor demand. Now, as you've seen with Zillow's out. Okay, Zillow's already come out and said we're going to be ending our iBuyer program, but that's 25% of the investor demand is from institutionals. Okay, 75% is from small-time investors, and what's going to happen is these small-time investors are going to stop investing, and that is the predominant amount of people investing. The reason is, quite frankly, the rental market's bad and the homes are outrageously overpriced. So as investor demand decreases, what that's going to do is increase the supply, okay? That's a big deal. Those 4 things I just mentioned, that's a super big deal. Those are facts. Now, obviously the demand is still very overwhelming. We still have a very overwhelming demand. Now let's go into some other factors on why I believe a recession or housing market crash is going to happen. Now, don't forget, stay tuned for the end of this video, because at the end of this video, I'm gonna make my point, a dollar for dollar point on why I'm renting right now and why I believe you should rent too. Here's E. Inflation. Okay, we are in a period of a potential stagflation. Inflation is getting higher and higher and higher, and with this new war, this Ukraine-Russia war, it will only make inflation even worse. And what happens generally is, as soon as we have all this inflation, a recession happens. Now, what's happening when we woke up today? Today's Monday. Higher gas prices like crazy. Generally, when the inflation and the gas prices hit, an immediate recession, or if a recession happens. I mean, it's been happening since the 1980s. When gas prices soar up, when that inflation hits gas prices, boom, recession. So E is the outrageous amount of inflation, and then you top that with the Federal Reserve being more dovish for some reason instead of hawkish. I'm not saying the feds need to pull the rug out from underneath us, but they kind of do, because we need the inflation to be combated. Okay, so E is the overwhelming amount of inflation I believe is going to lead to a housing market crash. Now here's F. The rental market is absolutely horrible. It has been the worst it's ever been. And now, as of December of last year in 2021, over 8% of households did not make the rental payment, okay? That's generally a sign of impending doom. Now, again, you guys, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my opinion, so, take it with a grain of salt. But that's one of the other factors that is contributing to why I think this market is going to collapse. If people stop paying their rent, it's going to drastically hurt actually, the small time investors, which could potentially lead to foreclosure. And again, remember, most of the investors are small-time investors like myself. They're great people. It's the institutional investors that are really hurting us, okay? But that is that. Now here's G, and some people may not think this is a big deal. I think this is a big deal, but G is realtors and sales agents are leaving this market at a record pace. Now, generally when agents leave the market, it's because they can't sell as much, right? It's because things are cooling down. Now think about that, okay? It starts with the professionals that are in the ditches, and there are a record number of realtors leaving, quite frankly, because they can't get their buyers any homes. It's very, very frustrating. And all of the other, a lot of homes that are just decent houses are way overpriced. So generally, people exiting the market, sales agents exiting the market is a sign of a market crash or cool down headed this direction. Now here's H. Sales are decreasing. The sale of homes as far as a unit amount are decreasing. And what that is already showing to me, even though we have this high demand here, there's not enough houses, right? And I understand that could lead to an even higher demand, but what it's doing is actually slowing down and cooling down our market, okay? Now, we don't have to go into too much of that, but sales are definitely decreasing. Now, here's the thing. When I add all of those things up, that to me, as someone that has been in this market for a very long time, a loan officer in Texas and a realtor in Houston, to me, those are all signs that we are gonna have a housing market crash, you guys, and that we will potentially have a recession. And when we have a recession and the job market goes, because remember, right now, we have an outstanding job market, right? And I believe that's propping us up a lot. But the moment that that job market declines and stops, it's endgame. It's endgame. Then everything will be almost identical to 2008, minus the inflation and minus the demand. But once the job market goes, it's endgame. Now let me tell you my point of renting now. So in order to explain to you my point, let's imagine that I'm gonna buy a home for $500,000 right now, okay? So I'm gonna buy a home at the very peak of this housing market for $500,000. Now, because I believe there's a recession, I'm assuming that that home, let's just say, is going to decrease this year 30%. That is a loss of equity of $150,000. I'm now stuck in that house. It will probably take me 7 to 10 years to recap that $150,000. Now, if I but wait 1 year and purchase that same home for $350,000, that means in 7 to 10 years, I can make $150,000 instead of rebounding from the equity loss. So overall, what it is a difference of $150,000. And you guys, that is my point. That is why I keep saying, wait a little bit, wait for some loss of equity so that we don't have to be stuck in our houses waiting for the rebound. Now, historically, investing in homes is absolutely wonderful, right? But all I'm saying is buy at the low, not at the high, right? And I always say this, I would prefer to pay a higher interest rate. I'll pay a 7% interest rate, 7.5% interest rate, if that means that I am not overpaying for a home $100,000 to $200,000. And y'all, that is my point. So if you're selling your house right now, or you want to put your house on the market, like I put my house on the market to rent, I'm receiving a passive income. And it's a lot of money. So even if the rental market turns and I have to lower my rent, I'm still gonna be ahead of the game because my financing terms on my primary residence are very, very good. My rate is in the low 2%. So I can afford to bring back down my payment. But also I don't wanna sell. I'll hold out for another 10 years to 15 years and I'll really cash in on my house. But I hope you guys can see what I'm saying here. Better a higher interest rate than overpaying for a home for that much money. And that is why I'm suggesting that possibly you should rent too. And that is why I am renting. Now, if you guys can, once again, walk along this journey with me. I am putting my money where my mouth is. I hope that I'm winning. I hope that I win. I don't want you guys to lose. Follow my footsteps here, but one thing is for sure, subscribe to my channel so you see what is gonna happen to me in my own personal situation. But anyways, you guys, I hope this video wasn't too long. I hope you guys are out there winning. Until next time, stay tuned.